Have you ever experienced an event that had made such an impact on your life that it changed the way you perceive the world? I remember how my life beamed before my eyes due to recent changes in the government's guidelines. We were to limit ourselves to the area around us. If anyone had left, stepped out of bounds, or anything along those lines, you wouldn't have been welcomed back into Japan. Of course, this was an irritating struggle for me and the merchants below me. Receiving rare inventory from the world around us was difficult and beyond the bounds of possibility. This is my retelling on the day my life changed for the worst. Labor would become arduous for all the merchants, whether you're persuasive or not. I can still recall the ashy smoke engulfing my nostrils, the infinitesimal lit debris sailing around me, delicate like butterflies soaring in the air. A distinctive charcoal cloud diffused among the blue skies, and I immediately made an inference that a structure had set fire. The source of the smoke resided on the left of me, where the Christian outsiders were spotted. I had no sympathy or empathy for the overseas men. Their troubles didn't faze nor affect me. Aside from the traumatic event for the unfamiliar men, it was an average day for the merchants and I. Motion was sensed in every corner of the street or route throughout the market. Of course, my stand won when it came to the larger amount of customers. I had the highest quality in goods, or my persuasive, manipulative ways were improving. I could vaguely catch my fellow merchants interpreting jealousy, greedy looks. I smirked in response. My associates began to pack up. I didn't mind. Their stands might as well sell tumbleweeds. I knew once my guests had purchased their needs, I would have to bundle up as well. The sun had convened with the horizon line like two familiar buddies reuniting for a date. The sun was slowly submerging underneath it. Now I had become like other merchants, since all my customers had fled back home. One by one, I placed my excessive goods back into my hazelnut tattered satchel. While previously surging my customers, I had made ink tally on my hand to advise myself to pick up a new shipment of inventory. The ink slits were so rich in color, they reminded me of shades of a shadow. I'd re-evaluated my pace of speed as I traveled in the late time. The paranoia was seeping into my brain, and I could predict a lurking criminal stalking my every action. I could taste the salt diffused in the late-night air. I had arrived at my destination with high expectations, only to be let down. Panic flowed through my veins, growing stronger by the second, like a sponge that you had wrung out. I expected a large wooden ship carrying inventory of foreign goods that were valuable in Japan, and without the delivery, my shack would flourish along with my peers. I felt the arid, jagged wooden pier along my backside as I laid, hoping for obnoxious honks to fill the air, or just bright fluorescent lights to gleam onto the dock, though I wished my entire being for the ship to arrive. Deep down in my bones, I knew that I would be waiting for nothing. A fluttering, gleaming flyer was hanging on its last thread. Struggling to keep itself attached to the cleat, I sprung up from my sitting position and sprinted hastily to it, snatching it without any hesitation. It was an announcement, declaring how after the previous night no more ships would continue to visit. Anger boiled through me. How could the shogun do such a foul, selfish thing? Didn't he know without the shipments of natural resources from other countries, our economy would flourish and us merchants would be useless? I couldn't help but ball my fist, ready to attack anything that tried to comfort me, or make matters worse. With my irritation still visible, I headed towards home, to my wife and son. If the restriction proceeded to remain, my son would have troubles becoming a merchant. The unfamiliar strong wind skimmed my shoulder. I was exploring in the woods with some fellow merchants when I was overcome with this strange feeling, a sense of danger. I could hear murmurs, and I scanned the surrounding area for mouths agape, but all of them had wandering eyes as well. I ran towards the direction of the voices, and behind me I could hear my associates shrieking in fear. My curiosity grew and grew, and I couldn't help but long for more. As I drew closer, my legs began to tremble with every step, and now my conscience was notifying me to surrender behind. There was no use in turning back now. By then, I had stuck my head out from behind a tree's rough, tattered trunk. Ships as large as the shogun's palace dominated the coast. Exotic pale men aboard the big contractions, and panic settled in my system. I looked over my shoulder to see a peer snooping around just like me. "Run! Sprint back to Edo and notify the shogun," I hollered out. My volume was above the average level, but I kept it controlled so the predators wouldn't be able to hear me. Have you ever felt like there was a presence behind you, chasing you, hunting you down, but the only thing trailing behind you was your shadow? That's what I experienced, but I didn't slow my pace down for a second. If we notify the shogun quick, we'll be considered heroes, exclaimed the stranger, running after me. If you're in it for the reputation, I recommend you reconsider your actions. Our whole country is at stake here. The lives of our citizens are more important than your rising wealth. I snapped back, feeling discomfort from the man beside me. I continued to scurry to the shogun's palace, hoping I would outrun the self-absorbed man. The city was now in sight. It looked like a normal day. The merchants attempted to convince customers to buy their merchandise, and the artisans worked hard on their crafts. The women cleaned their surroundings, but it was anything but an average afternoon. I reached my checkpoint of a gray, dusty stone trail that led to the whereabouts of the shogun. I'd quickened my pace. The sooner I'd informed the shogun, the possibility of saving our town increased. Usually, when I encountered his palace, I would admire it and inspect all the beautiful details, but my mind was determined. When I reached walking distance, I could see that samurai and military were already on their way. I stopped an acquaintance. Is the shogun already aware what has happened? I asked, dumbfounded. I knew the answer, but it wouldn't hurt to inquire. The stranger only responded with a nod. My breath was uncontrollable. I was heaving like I'd run in a race. I thought about the whole situation in general as I sat in the corner of a street. Was this a good thing for us citizens? I remembered my agitation when the rule was set. I couldn't help but feel okay with it all.